Welcome to this lesson on the risk of doing nothing. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to explain why choosing not to engage with artificial intelligence is itself a strategic risk for an NGO, rather than a safe or neutral position. When artificial intelligence feels complex or uncomfortable, doing nothing can seem sensible. Many NGO leaders worry about ethics, cost, or getting it wrong, so the instinct is to pause and wait for clarity. The problem is that in the context of artificial intelligence, inaction does not freeze the world in place. It simply means change happens without your input. Artificial intelligence is already shaping the environment NGOs operate in. Funders use it to assess proposals. Platforms use it to prioritize content and visibility. Partners and suppliers increasingly rely on automated systems for decisions that affect access, eligibility, and risk. Even if your NGO never deploys an artificial intelligence system internally, you are still being affected by systems designed elsewhere. One of the core risks of doing nothing is loss of agency. When an NGO delays engagement, artificial intelligence still enters the organization through default settings, third-party tools, or inherited processes. Decisions get embedded into software before leadership has defined principles, guardrails, or accountability. Over time, this makes it harder to challenge outcomes or explain decisions to stakeholders. There is also a growing capability gap. NGOs that start learning now build confidence, shared language, and basic governance over time. Those that wait often face steeper learning curves under pressure, for example when a funder expects data-driven reporting or when a crisis exposes weaknesses in decision-making. Catching up is usually much harder than starting small. Consider an NGO that relies heavily on digital outreach to reach vulnerable communities. Platform algorithms change, increasingly shaped by artificial intelligence. Engagement drops, but the reasons are unclear. Without basic understanding of how these systems work, the NGO struggles to adapt its approach, losing reach not because the mission is weaker, but because the environment has shifted. Another risk is ethical drift. NGOs are rightly cautious about bias, transparency, and harm. But avoiding artificial intelligence entirely does not remove these risks. It often transfers them to vendors or partners, where the NGO has less visibility and influence. Engaging early allows leaders to ask better questions, set expectations, and align technology use with values. A common pitfall is assuming that waiting equals safety. In reality, waiting often increases exposure because decisions are made implicitly rather than deliberately. A useful pro tip is to treat early engagement as learning, not commitment. Understanding artificial intelligence does not mean deploying it at scale. It means being prepared to govern it when it inevitably appears. Another mistake is framing artificial intelligence purely as a technical issue. When left to specialists alone, leadership disengages and risk increases. The most resilient NGOs treat artificial intelligence as a strategic and ethical topic owned at leadership level, even if technical expertise sits elsewhere. Let's wrap up with 3 key takeaways. Number 1, doing nothing about artificial intelligence is still a decision, and it carries real strategic and ethical risk. Number 2, NGOs that delay engagement often lose agency as artificial intelligence enters through default tools and external partners. Number 3, early understanding builds capability, governance, and confidence without requiring immediate large-scale adoption. As a closing thought, NGOs exist to protect and advance human outcomes, often in complex and sensitive contexts. Avoiding artificial intelligence entirely does not protect that mission. Thoughtful engagement does. The goal is not to rush, but to lead with awareness rather than absence.